The movie opens welcoming us into a world that feels familiar because it's set in the not-so-distant past when everyone was staying indoors due to the coronavirus. Imagine a clock ticking down on a phone screen. That's how the film begins, hinting at the name of the movie, Dashcam. Amidst the beeping countdown, we meet Annie, the vibrant core of the story. She's bursting with energy, making final touch-ups as she's about to hit the Go Live button for her special online show, Bandcar. Picture a blend of rocking music, gig, and someone's personal diary. That's what Bandcar is. It's like taking a peek into Annie's daily life, spiced up with tunes she belts out every now and then. And let me tell you, Annie is a whirlwind. Her energy, contagious. We follow Annie as she scoots back to her cozy home where she shares a heartwarming moment with her fluffy cat. But there's an air of restlessness. It seems like the walls are closing in on her because she's had enough of being cooped up inside due to the quarantine in LA. On the incentive of the moment, she decides to leave LA, with London being her destination. We next see her in an eerily quiet airport which is almost like a ghost town. This is where the silence speaks volumes. Annie is live streaming her adventure and keeps her audience engaged with her chit-chat. She's like an open book and her viewers are turning the pages. At one point, as she's chatting away, she casually throws in that she has brain cancer. The movie now sets the stage for an adventure with an electric protagonist blending the energy of music with the raw emotions of everyday life. You're strapped in and Annie's behind the wheel, where she takes everywhere with her. Annie lands in the charming city of London. The buzzing streets lead her to the humble house of her friend, nestled among rows of brick houses. Here we find out that this friend, Stretch, shares a past with Annie. They used to create soul-stirring music together in a band named Giant Drag. Nowadays, Stretch zips through the streets as a food delivery guy, sharing his life with his girlfriend Gemma. Annie, being her quirky self, finds the keys to Stretch's house hidden under a rock, just like in the old days. She tiptoes into his room, and what does she do? She wakes him up with a good old slap. Imagine the shock on Stretch and his girlfriend's faces. But the panic calms when Stretch realizes that the hurricane that entered his room is none other than Annie, his old friend. However, not everyone is thrilled to see her. Gemma, Stretch's girlfriend, is less than amused by Annie's surprise visit, but Stretch's face lights up. It's like a piece of his past has come back to life. As the story unfolds, Annie and Gemma's differences come to the forefront, especially when they talk about the coronavirus. Gemma's serious take on it clashes with Annie's careless opinions. As the day goes on, Annie decides to tag along with Stretch on his delivery rounds, but remember, she's live streaming the whole time. This is where things take a comical turn. Picture Annie making playful jabs at Stretch, joking about how he's now delivering food, all while her online audience is watching. She's like a tornado, unstoppable and unapologetic. But that's not all, she also rattles the restaurant owners. How? Well, she's not a fan of wearing masks and she doesn't hold back her thoughts. This anti-mask stance creates quite a stir as she's made to leave the restaurant. When Annie and Stretch get back to the house, the tension is thick as fog. Gemma's like a volcano about to erupt. She's absolutely mad with Annie. Her anger boils over and she goes after Annie like a wildcat. Annie later catches wind of Gemma giving Stretch an ultimatum. It's either you kick Annie out or I will be leaving. This makes Annie's rebel spirit catch fire. In a sneaky move, Annie swipes Stretch's car and his phone, and she's off, tearing through the streets of London. And guess what? She's live streaming every second of this wild escapade to her audience, who are hanging on to her every word. Meanwhile, Stretch discovers his car is missing. He's as mad as he gets and bombards Annie with text messages demanding his car back. But she pays no mind to his messages. Here's where things get even more interesting. A food order pops up on the car's delivery app. Instead of ignoring it, Annie decides she's going to treat herself to the food instead of actually delivering it. She zooms to the restaurant, but something's off. It's like a ghost town. Not a soul in sight. As she's trying to piece things together, she meets the restaurant owner, who seems a bit mysterious. She makes Annie an offer she can't refuse. She wants her to drive an old lady named Angela to a secret place, and she's willing to pay her a big pile of cash for it. Annie's a bit hesitant at first, but when the owner throws in extra cash, she's in. Then there's Annie zipping through the streets with Angela, and her online audience is watching this crazy adventure unfold. But wait, there's a twist. Annie suddenly smells a foul scent, and it turns out Angela has pooped herself. They have to make an emergency stop at a diner to get cleaned up. Inside the diner, as Annie's still reeling from the shock of seeing Angela's Ariana Grande tattoo, something even more terrifying happens. A frantic woman storms into the diner, pounding on the door looking for Angela. Just as Annie wonders what's going on, the entire place takes a turn for the supernatural. Angela's eyes transform into a ghostly white, and the lights overhead explode as if struck by lightning. Annie's heart is pounding so fast it feels like it might leap out of her chest. She scrambles to hide behind the counter. Peeking out from her spot, Annie can't believe her eyes. Angela's using some kind of supernatural power. She's changing TV channels without touching the remote, and sends the woman flying across the room like a leaf in the wind. Annie, scared for her life, escapes the diner and heads to the car. Meanwhile, Stretch has been watching Annie's live stream and figures out where she is. He finds her and forces his way into the car. They're both shaken to the core when Angela pops up in the car out of nowhere. They hit the gas and drive off, but not before getting into a heated argument. In the midst of all this chaos, Angela vanishes like a ghost. Stretch decides to brave the nearby forest to find her. He spots her standing on a tree branch high above the ground. In a desperate attempt to reach her, Stretch loses his balance and falls. Angela, defying all laws of gravity, floats gently to the ground like a feather. Suddenly, the woman from the diner reappears, this time wielding a shotgun. She's determined to take down Annie and Stretch. They manage to dodge her bullets and scramble back to the car. As they race down the road, Angela suddenly appears in front of them. As Annie goes out of the car to check out, she makes another shocking discovery. Angela's mouth has been sealed shut with staples. In a terrifying moment, Angela tears the staples off and lunges at Annie, trying to bite her. Stretch is distracted by the chaos, and the car crashes into another vehicle with a couple of newlyweds inside, killing them both. Angela turns into a nightmarish creature, biting into Annie's flesh and showing off even more supernatural powers. Annie and Stretch are like deer caught in headlights. They're panicking and on the run. They try to wave down a passing car, thinking they'll find help. But, plot twist, the car zooms forward and runs right over Stretch. And guess who steps out of the car? It's the lady with the shotgun from earlier. She reveals that she's actually Angela's mom, and she's been desperately trying to find her. She grabs Stretch and puts the shotgun to his head. Her voice is icy as she threatens to pull the trigger if Annie doesn't reveal where Angela is. Meanwhile, Annie's live stream has caught fire on the internet. It's like the world is tuned in and the chat is exploding with comments from viewers who can't believe what they're seeing. Annie, in a desperate move, tries to make a break for it in Angela's mom's car. But as she speeds away, the mother manages to hit the car. Annie loses control and the car crashes. Angela's mom is relentless. She goes after Annie, but she didn't count on Stretch, who, despite being hurt, is determined to help his friend. Together, they manage to outsmart Angela's mom. They trap her arm in the car's steering wheel, and with a sickening snap, break it. Angela's mom is now in agony, starting to spill a shocking story. She tells them that Angela's actually just 16 years old. She shows them a recent photo of a young, innocent-looking Angela sporting the same Ariana Grande tattoo. They can't believe their eyes. But before they can even process the revelation, Angela appears like a ghostly apparition. In a spine-chilling moment, she tears her own mother's head off with inhuman strength. Annie and Stretch's hearts are pounding like drums as they run for their lives. Angela, now more like a creature from a nightmare than a girl, is hot on their heels. Annie and Stretch are racing back to the car like they're in an Olympic sprint, but Angela's no ordinary girl. She's got supernatural powers. She effortlessly flips the car over with just a breath. Annie and Stretch have no choice but to dart back into the woods. Stretch is gasping for air and can't keep up. He loses sight of Annie and the two friends get separated. Suddenly, Angela pulls Stretch along the ground like a puppet on strings. Stretch claws his way to a metal fence and manages to climb over it. He tumbles down a hill, and when he looks back, Angela is nowhere to be seen. He realizes that he's in an old, abandoned amusement park, a place with a ghost town vibe. Stretch tries to call for help, but his phone has no signal. He decides he has to find Annie. He spots a trail of blood on the ground and follows it, his heart pounding. The trail eventually leads him to Annie, who he finds huddled inside one of the teacups. She's in bad shape and not responding. He tries shaking her, but nothing works. Then he remembers an old trick they shared as friends. He spits on his hand and gives her a slap. It's like magic. She wakes up. Annie snatches her phone from Stretch when she turns the camera to him to resume her live stream. Angela suddenly appears behind Stretch. Annie dashes into a hall of mirrors with Stretch close behind. In the hall of mirrors, they hear each other but can't find a way through the maze of reflections. Stretch, who has been more level-headed, realizes that Annie is losing it. He decides to give her a pep talk to rejuvenate her spirit. But the moment is shattered as Angela breaks through the mirrors with a crash. In a horrifying moment, she rips out Stretch's throat and kills him. Annie, now alone and desperate, scrambles back to the parking lot. She manages to break into another car. As she drives away, her heart aches for her lost friend Stretch. As Annie's heart races, she lights up a cigarette trying to calm her nerves, but there's no break in this roller coaster ride. Out of nowhere, Angela jumps onto the roof of the car like a wildcat. Annie's eyes widen as she clutches her camera. For a brief second, she catches Angela breaking into the car through the trunk on the camera. They are now parked by the side of a big lake. Annie barely gets a second to take in the view when Angela grabs her from behind. Despite her pain, she fights back with all her might. She uses the car seat belts like ropes and ties Angela up. She even puts a bag over Angela's head to try to stop her. But Angela's not done yet. She makes an unearthly groan and the car shakes like it's caught in an earthquake. Suddenly, the car shoots up into the air, then crashes back down into the water with a giant splash. The car starts filling up with water like a sinking ship. Angela's clawing and reaching for Annie, who fights back using a headrest like a sword, stabbing Angela through the face. The water roars and the captain is now almost underwater. Annie knocks open a door and swims to the surface, gasping for air. But the craziness is not over yet. As Annie tries to catch her breath, Angela, who looks like a ghost now, flying out of the water and up into the sky. Annie, panting and bruised, finds herself in front of a large, eerie building that seems to have been abandoned for ages. She ventures inside for a moment. He thinks she has won the fight against Angela and does a little victory dance, her spirit still unbroken. But then it dawns on her this is the address where she was supposed to drop Angela off. As she tries to run away, the doors get shut. She then dashes through the creepy building. She sees weird drawings, texts, and symbols on the walls. Suddenly, she stumbles into a room and freezes. There's a group of people who looks creepy and possessed by some spirit. Before she can blink, they all take out knives and cut their own throats. Just like a ghost, Angela pops up out of nowhere and attacks her again. They wrestle and fight. Summoning all her strength, Annie plunges a knife deep into Angela's throat, killing her. But then something gross happens. A slimy slug-like monster bursts out of Angela's mouth. Annie realizes this must be why Angela had weird powers and looked so old for her age. The slug creature is now after Annie. She runs like the wind, finding a dark tunnel. Inside, she sees a bunch of wrecked cars, which appear to belong to the creature's victims. Annie's brain goes into overdrive as she plays a terrifying game of hide-and-seek with the monster. Finally, she gets an idea. She traps the creature under a car, and with a roar, she smashes its head with her musical keyboard, her weapon of choice. Tired, battered, and shaken, Annie collapses in Stretch's car. She's barely caught her breath when her phone beeps. her live stream is back on. Viewers are flooding in, asking what happened. The movie ends as Annie decides to go out with a bang and raps. Thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. Hit that notification bell for more videos like this, and we'll see you in the next video.